22. Is everybody there? Okay. On page 22, the first thing I want you to do is write down the title of the story for me. The title of the story. The title of the story. Who can tell me the title of the story? Terrence.
Metro City News.
Okay, the Metro City News. What do you know about the word news? Anyone know anything? Write down anything you know about the word news. Something you know about the word news. Arturo, anything you know about the word news? Don't talk until we have something written down. What do you know about the news? Please, can you turn that down just a little bit? Thank you. What do you know about the news, Arturo? Okay, information. Terrence, what do you know about the news?
I know that when something happens.
Okay, something happens. Dustin, what do you know about the news?
Where crashes are.
Okay, it might tell you where crashes are. And what do you know about the news? It gives information about the world. What I want you to do right now is I want you to look at the pictures, and I want you to tell me what you think we might be reading about today. Just by looking at the pictures. Looking at the pictures, what do you think we might be reading about today? It says the Metro City News. That might give you a hint. And what do you think we might be reading about? Please write it down. And then you've got to justify your answer. How do you know it? How do you know it? Justify your answer. How do you know we might be reading about this? How do you know that? Terrence, what do you think we're going to be reading about?
I think we're going to read about newspaper. People are reading about newspapers.
What gave you that hint?
Because I look at the pictures and there's newspapers right here and newspapers right here.
Okay. Destiny, what did you find? What did you decide?
Newspaper.
Why did you say the newspapers? There's newspapers right there and right there. And how do you know?
You might be reading about how they make them, or you have them here, like how they put them.
Okay. They have like how they're in the machines in our chair. What about you? Okay, there's all newspapers there, okay? What I want you to do first of all is put your finger on the very first word for me. Everybody put your finger on the very first word for me, please. Okay? And we're going to read the first part together. Are you guys ready? The person's name is Helen Ellison. Let's read it again. Helen Ellison began her day as she did every day. She picked up the paper from her front porch and read it at the breakfast table. Stop right there. I want you to go back in that sentence and tell me, find the sentence that proves where she read her newspaper at. Where did she read her newspaper at? Where did she read her newspaper at? I need that exact sentence because we have to cite evidence from the text in the story. You see how it's? I have things in it where it's still a fuzzy guide. It's a great thing. Did you see how this is geared towards them rather than the others? Okay, Destiny, what did you decide?
Or Sleuth front porch.
Okay, you think she read it on her front porch? Okay, what do you think?
She read it on the breakfast table.
She read it on the breakfast table. What do you think?
She picked up the paper and read it from the porch.
She read it on the front porch. And Arturo, what do you think?
The breakfast table.
The breakfast table. Now we have two that agree and two disagree. So we're going to be able to go back and read that sentence again. Are you guys ready? Start with she again. She picked up the paper from her front porch and read it at the breakfast table. Oh, anybody change their mind? Terrence, why did you change your mind?
Because I messed up on this part. She picked up the paper and I thought she picked up the breakfast table.
Oh, you thought she picked it off the breakfast table instead of the front porch. Okay. Dusty, what happened with you, honey? She thought she read it on the front porch. So, do we need to go back and reread? See why sometimes when we reread? Because when we read, then we find that whether we're right or wrong. So let's put our finger back on Miss Ellison. Miss Ellison was the managing editor of the Daily Metro City News. Okay, let's stop there a second. So what is her job? Go back in the sentence, write down what her job is. Find the words that say what her job is. What is her job? Now, if this was a different group, we wouldn't be picking this apart. We would pick it apart because they need to know the details of the sentence. Destiny, what is her job? Managing editor of the Daily News. Okay, the managing editor. What do you know?
Her job is the editor of Metro City News.
Okay, I would like you to take the word editor, E-D-I-T-O-R.
Editor.
Okay, write the word editor down. E-D-I-T-O-R. Now, I want you to look in that word editor. What word do you see in that word? Edit. And what do we know about the word O-R? A person. So it is a person who does what? Edits. So an editor is a person who edits. So what do you think she edits? The newspaper. Very good. So you took the word editor and found out that edit means to fix. And OR is to a person. So she is a person that edits. And we discovered that she is a person that edits the newspaper. To start with the very first one, after. After she finished reading the paper, she went to work downtown. Inside the tall newspaper building where rooms full of desks, computers, and telephones. Stop there. I want you to tell me where she works. What kind of work does she do? Where does she work? Not what kind of work. You need to put it in your Google Doc and answer the questions, please. Okay. Excuse me. What do you have, Terrence?
She worked downtown.
She worked downtown. How do you know it's downtown?
It said at the paragraph.
In the paragraph? And what do you know about downtown? What kind of things are downtown? Building, what kind of buildings?
Like,
Tall buildings, so we showed it in the text that
Mom said downtown. I saw downtown.
so you saw downtown with the tall buildings then too, right? Okay. Let's read about today. Today, Mrs. Ellison's son, Henry, was going to work with her. Henry loved seeing how the newspaper was made. Fascinated by the hustle and bustle, he watched reporters work furiously to make tight deadlines and get their stories ready for the next day. Okay, we're going to talk about this. If they don't get the newspaper out, what happens? Write it down. What do you think happens if they don't get that newspaper out? What happens? What happens if they don't get that newspaper out? So we're going to do a little bit of cause and effect. What happens if we don't get that newspaper out? What happens if we don't get that newspaper out? What happens if we don't get that newspaper out? Cause and effect. Do you guys have those?
We have 4 bucks.
We did have cord. Yeah, we got $4. Destiny, what happens if they don't get the newspaper out?
The next day you won't get it.
We won't get the newspaper. Terrence, what do you think happens if we don't get the newspaper out?
I think they'll get fired, and if they don't get it, they need to know something that's important. If they don't, then that's gonna happen.
So they don't know the news has happened, they're not going to know what's important. Chair, what do you think happens if they don't get the newspaper out?
People would be mad because they don't know what's going on.
Okay, people be mad because they don't know what's going on. And what do you think?
That's the thing.
The boss will get them because they didn't get the newspaper. So we have a cause and effect. Are people going to be angry?
That's gonna be fired.
They may get fired, you're right, if they don't get the newspaper out. Now let's start. So who is Mrs. Ellison's son? Please go back in there and show me who Mrs. Ellison's son is. And tell me what he was going to do today. What was he going to do today? I'll watch my timer.
I just giggle because it's the same to you.
It is. Just a little older. Directly to the point. And it's not all written down either. I know where we're going. Arturo, who was her son? Henry, what was Henry going to do?
Her job.
Her job. Destiny, what do you think her son's name is? Mary, do you think he's going to her job today? And Terrence?
I think I say the same thing.
But you can't say I say the same thing.
That what's his name?
Henry?
Henry is going to work with Alex.
Okay. And what do you think?
Miss Edison's son is Henry, and he will go to her.
Okay. Do we know what her job is?
Yes.
So we do know what her job is. Okay? He likes the newspaper. So let's read about now Henry real quick, and we're going to finish up because we're just going to run out of time. So we're going to finish this last sentence and we should be done. Now Henry reminded his mom, Mr. Townsend can't talk baseball today. He has an important deadline to make. I want you to look at the word deadline and tell me what you think the word deadline means in that sentence. What does deadline mean in that sentence? We know it's a compound word because it's dead and line, but what do you think deadline means in that sentence? He has an important deadline to make. Mr. Thompson can't talk baseball today. He has an important deadline to make. What do you think deadline means in that sentence? What do you think deadline means?
He does not have enough time to talk.
He doesn't have time to talk. What do you think deadline means? Not time to talk. You've got to get it in. Deadline means you've got to get something in that story in, because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. Sort of like when your parents pay bills. It's not really a deadline, but it's a due date, and if it's not paid, they're in trouble. So it's almost like a deadline. Yes?
I think the deadline means he can't talk about baseball because he has something to do important.
He has something important to do. Now, Cheryl, what are you thinking? Or he would get fired if he doesn't do it, doesn't he? Gentlemen, ladies, I'll take it.